This is update for January 10, 2024, day 686 of the war, end of the date update. Also catch up for January 9 and 8. So I just want to start first with, as I always do, with general topics, and then we're going to switch to the situation on the front line. And I decided to bring this picture because it's worth million words or $1 billion or whatever you call it. It's basically encapsulates everything that's wrong with Ukrainian political top and specifically Ukrainian president. So let me start explaining this picture, and then you're going to make your own sort of conclusions about all of this. So this person in the corner is Russian representative by the United Nations. The person in the center, his name is Vitaly Zakharchenko. He used to be Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine during the presidency of Ukrainian president named, his last name is Yanukovych, who was a Russian agent effectively running Ukraine into the ground and in the direction of becoming part of Russia. Just for the reference, during that time, Russian citizen and obviously agent of Russian KGB was running Ukrainian Minister of Defense, and also another Russian person was running Ukrainian version of KGB. It's called SBU. So this is this person. He was invited by the Russian representative to speak at the UN. To obviously representatives from around the world, and where he was essentially blaming West for creating a coup in Ukraine, and then obviously all of the negative things that's related from him, but basically it was a propaganda speech directed against the West. So this person was essentially Russia's puppet, which he was from the very beginning, because for those who don't know, that Ukrainian president Yanukovych, who really was Russian sort of agent, was basically ousted by Ukrainian population. It was popular uprising. From a legal perspective, it was definitely illegal. But I think once you have someone who is himself is illegal, then you have the right to use also illegal ways to fix the problem. So effectively, he was ousted in 2014, and this is the same person in that time during Yanukovych's time. This is this Zakharchenko when he was the Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. You can even see here a little bit Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. This main department is obviously, I would say, poor language translation. But the person who sits, and I just want to explain one more thing about this person, the Zakharchenko. He was, let's say, attack dog of that Ukrainian president Yanukovych. So basically, anyone who was opposing or against, he was very quick to attack, and he had his own attack dog. His last name is Tataro. This is this person sitting here. So he was I think, head or deputy head of Department of Investigation. So this is called here main department. Really, this is investigation. So basically, that's the most potent weapon that Minister of Internal Affairs had, because you can always fabricate investigation, and you can always fabricate that someone is whatever at fault in terms of something. So at that time, this person was basically attacking anyone who was against that Ukrainian president, who was Russian agent and Russian puppet. So in 2014, obviously, this Minister of Internal Affairs fled to Russia together with so-called Ukrainian president. This person decided to stay in Ukraine. He laid low for 5 years, didn't show up anywhere. Then when new Ukrainian president was elected, which is current Ukrainian president, was elected. He brought in, he came together with this person here in green. His last name is Yermak. You probably know it's head of his administration. He's totally not elected person, but essentially he runs the country behind the curtain. And this person here next to him is the same person, Tatarov, as you can see here. This is Tatarov as well. Almost 10 years later, older, obviously, as you can see, and he's doing the same thing. He's basically, a tag dog of Yermak, and doing the same thing. He's in charge of. He basically doing sort of oversight of Ministry of Internal Affairs, but also all the prosecutors in Ukraine, and also of Ukrainian version of KGB, which is SBU, as I said. So his power grew, as you can see, and he's actively using it to attack anyone who is saying anything against current Ukrainian president. But the point is, this is all interconnected, and the links are going all back to, Russia, as you can see, and that's where, as I said, there's a problem here, is because this actions, who is the point and what he's doing, really speaks louder than the words that Ukrainian president is presenting in the West when he travels. So hopefully it explains what's really going on in Ukraine in terms of who's really running Ukraine at this point. And there might be a question from the viewers. So how is this that allegedly Ukraine is run by Russian agent? How is this happening that Ukraine fights and so on? And the answer is very simple, which I mentioned many times before. It's a population that fights, and if you are in tiny minority, you cannot change the will of population. Even if you are Ukrainian president, what you can do, you can undermine that will by creating all sort of visible and invisible obstacles on the path of that fight, which is exactly what Ukrainian president and what Yermak and what Tatarov are doing since the beginning of the war, and prior to the war, by the way. Just for the reference, when Ukrainian president, the current Ukrainian president came to power, Ukraine had a very extensive and intensive missile development program from all ranges, from anti-tank, anti-ship, anti-air, long range, and so on. So all of that was immediately killed. And essentially all of those manufacturers didn't get any money. So it was, there was a huge, essentially it's disarming country right before the start of the war. Okay, now I'm going to switch a little bit to different topics, and before I jump to the situation on the battleground, just want to mention a couple things. It looks like, which are important for Ukraine, is first Poland. It looks like it's descending into the cold civil war, which is really bad for Ukraine because it was strong support, even though their relationship over past probably year were not that great. It still was strong support and strong base for Ukraine, and it's unfortunate that the country is descending into the chaos, I would say. That's one thing. Then I just want to remind that on the 13th, which is Saturday, there will be election in Taiwan. I think everybody's waiting and looking how they're gonna play out there, and then I'll try to discuss it when on the 13th, actually, when I'm gonna planning to do next video. And then another topic is funding for Ukraine, or military help and financial help from the US. My position is that Ukraine is probably not going to get anything from the US. US itself is within internal conflict. I don't think it's really reconcilable conflict where it's at the multiple levels. It's at the sort of strategic level where, as I mentioned before, Democratic Party is not willing to do compromise with the Republican Party to limit immigration into the U.S. The reason for that is very simple, because that's their voting base, and people who vote for them are in favor of that. So essentially, you're going to destroy your voter base, and in the year of the presidential elections, nobody can afford that. So that's on the one level, on a strategic level or sort of objective level. And then there's also sort of subjective level or personal level. There's personal animosity between two parties, and it seems like it's growing ever deeper with every passing day. So what's probably going to happen is that U.S. Parliament will try, and I'm not even sure, will try to just pass this extension of the baseline budget. So basically what this really means, let's say you're just saying, okay, well, we're spending X dollars per year last year, let's just keep rolling with that. There's no really review of anything. It's just automatic extension of the current expenditures, which is obviously a terrible way to manage finances, and generally it's not healthy for the government bureaucracy in terms of accountability. But this is probably what's going to be happening, because also Republican Party cannot afford to look bad in the year of elections, where they will be blamed for disrupting governmental services and so on. So they also have incentive to just do these extensions, and neither party has incentive to actually compromise and actually do the real budget, which will include help for Ukraine. So most likely that help is not forthcoming. It would be a nice surprise if it does, but I would say my bet it's not going to come. And unfortunately, it's sort of in a way like a domino system where continental Europe is seeing US is not there. Okay, we're probably not going to be there either, because there was not even huge desire to be there in the first place. And then if you're not seeing US backing it up, then okay, well, we have internal problems. You probably see what's going on in Germany with the farmer protests, and so basically, and then German economy is really descending into bad place. I showed this in the summer, during summer, economic deterioration there. It's continuing. There's no end in sight there. And in a way, the situation is in some ways, and it's unfortunate, reminds me like how it was in the early 30s, or let's say during Great Depression, where economic deterioration will lead to appearance of very extremely radical parties, which is Alternative for Germany is leading everywhere and gaining results in polls. And so it's unfortunate sort of situation where, as they say, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme, and it seems like it's rhyming. At the same time, this situation is totally sort of made by the German government because it's all a result of fighting conventional energy. As I said before, many times, this is a result of the war on conventional energy, and there's no desire to change the course, which will lead to very bad outcome, not immediately, but in the long run. So now let's switch to the situation in Ukraine on the front line. There was a lot of sort of reports that there is some Russian offensive happening, or Russian offensive was disrupted, or whatever. So I just want to explain, there was no Russian offensive, nothing has been disrupted, and there is very weak Russian normal pressure. There is no real, true, meaningful attacks or real strong pressure, with probably moderate pressure around Avdiivka. Otherwise, actually, pressure subsided significantly. It's definitely much weaker. It doesn't mean that things are stable in the long run. It just, at the moment, this is what's really happening. There's no really any kind of offensive, and as I said, there's no disruption of any kind of offensive. There might be desire by Russian side to sort of force the hand, because they feel that Ukrainian situation has deteriorated significantly. So it's obviously invites even more aggression. So that's totally possible. Remains to be seen, but nobody's seeing imminent signs of any major offensive, so-called offensive, because as I said many times before, Russian army is not capable of conducting proper offensive. They can do squeezes, sort of similar to what Ukrainian army do. It's just basically it's a war of peasant armies on both sides. That's just really what it is. Now I'm just going to walk through the front line in a clockwise fashion, the way I always do. So starting along the border, situation remains the same, stable, nothing really major going on, and there's no really any major visible build-up of the Russian troops of their really meaningful size. Meaning, because if Russia is attacking, they need at least 200,000 troops somewhere in Belgorod-Kursk region, and it's not there simply. Because they clearly learned lessons that doing this police operations that they attempted at the beginning of the war fails miserably and leads to tremendous losses that essentially could be fatal for Russia in the long run. So they cannot afford those losses anymore either, by the way. Now let's move to the North Luhansk front line. Things here, as I said, fairly quiet. There's some pressure from the northeast of Kupiansk, but that one also subsided. There is some weak pressure here, the same as I showed last time. But again, it's all at the lower level. Now let's move to the North Donbass front line. Things here are quiet in the northern sector. Southern actually surprisingly quiet too, by the way. So it's a interesting picture in a long while. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line. So the only place where there is some moderate and it's Russian pressure is Avdiivka. Again, even here it subsided, and that's probably part of the reason why situation had become somewhat stable from Ukrainian perspective, because Russian side does not have enough resources to really amp up that pressure to the point that it starts to crush Ukrainian defenses. Then there is some fairly weak pressure here in Novomikhailivka area, and no progress anywhere so far by Russian side. Now let's look at the situation on the Zaporizhya front line. Things here again the same, continuing Russian attacks around this Robodino salient. However, they again subsiding, weak, purely tactical, low level, nothing truly major happening here. Now let's finish with the situation along the Dnipro River. Things here remain the same. Ukrainian forces continue to hold this bridgehead around Krinky. Russian side reporting that it actually even a little bit increased. But again, the situation there is, I would say, it's very tempting. It's an excellent sort of peace asset for the future, for the future opportunity for Ukraine. But there is a problem that Ukrainian army just simply not capable of executing true offensive operations. Otherwise, it could be very interesting situation. But so the Russian response is to continue attacking it with missiles, bombs, everything. It obviously doesn't solve the problem because they don't have density of artillery shelling or air bombs. It just what happened in 2022 when they can just rain with the shells. That time has gone, and even though North Korea, China are helping, Iran are helping, they're not really helping in meaningful size because in order for Russia to sort of replicate what they were doing, you really need like World War II type of production of artillery shells, which I would say it means at least 1 million per month, and they don't have it. Even let's say North Korea, China, and Iran don't have it simply because they don't also produce those numbers. They sell sort of extra things from their inventory, but their production is also on the lower end because nobody was preparing for any kind of major war anywhere in the world. So it's kind of like a natural limiting factor in all of this. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.